Today I'm sharing a little of our rhythm here in the countryside, from working with what God provides in the garden to preparing nourishing food for the family and even watching my husband tend to the land. These are the slow, faithful rhythms that anchor us as homemakers. If you're new here, my name is Clara. I share simple, peaceful rhythms of homemaking, hospitality, and biblical womanhood to encourage Christian wives, moms, and homemakers. This happens to be Sunday evening, and as I saw a bit of what I had planned ahead to do, I thought, let me invite you to come along so that perhaps what I share would be a blessing and something that you would want to learn and adopt for yourself, perhaps as a homemaker. And I'm beginning by cleaning beans. These are beans that haven't dried. We harvested them last week. As I shared in last week's vlog, I was not able to shell them in time because I was very busy, so I kept them, added to them today, harvested a few more and then shelled them, and we are getting to boil them. And I love to capture the beans also at this point because it's easier to work with them really, because you don't need to soak them. They also have a very unique, nice taste. And so I thought, let me boil them so that we can have them for a meal of githeri and mokimo later in the week. I am also working on a recipe of tomato paste, and I just thought to share a bit of what I was having for supper. I had captured the process of making that supper, but I thought that would be too long, and most of us, especially if you are from Kenya, you know how to make ugali. But in case you don't know, I have that recipe on our other channel, how to make ugali, and of course we had it with a simple egg recipe, fried egg recipe, as well as a simple sauteed cabbage. That was very simple, and I turn to ugali a lot because it's one of our meals in Kenya that are very easy to make with egg when I have a busy evening. I go to wash these tomatoes. If you remember in last week's vlog, probably I will link it in the description in case you didn't see, or as an end screen. I had bought 5 kilograms of tomatoes because I found them very cheap in the market. That's about 30 shillings a kilo in Kenya, which is quite fair and cheap. So I bought a lot of them. Thank God they have survived to the weekend. I have gotten to clean them, cut them in quarters. And now our beans, because I was pressure cooking them, usually once the pressure cooker begins to hiss, I will time for 20 minutes and they will be ready. So they are ready to go. We will allow them to cool and then keep them in the fridge so that we can use the beans in the course of the week. So I have already prepared my tomatoes, and I will simply cover. Once the pressure cooker begins to hiss, also I will time for 5 minutes, and then as we continue on, I will show you what we will do with the tomatoes, because I'm going to allow them to rest in the pressure cooker overnight. Now that it will be too late to work on them, I will work on them in the morning. And because I happened to have fed my sourdough starter and I ran out of my whole wheat flour, I've been using all-purpose, and I'm so grateful that a lot of the all-purpose flours we use in our country will feed your sourdough very well. They have been feeding my sourdough really well, and we are enjoying working with it. My daughters are liking it because the breads are fluffier now that they don't have whole wheat, and I'm also liking the experience, with their own, the breads turn out with their own unique taste. And of course also sourdough is healthier, as you know, and so I love to work with it because the bulk ferment allows the nutrients in your doughs to break down so that your body will find them easier to digest when you eat your products from sourdough. I'm working on a really simple bread recipe that I love, and I was feeding this sourdough starter because I didn't want it to overstay in the fridge without being fed. But one of the things I love to do when I've fed my starter is to make bread, because as always, as people love to say, your future self will thank you. I am always grateful I made bread because it always comes in handy, especially as we begin a week. being homeschoolers, we need bread for sandwiches, sometimes for lunches, for breakfasts, and so bread is something I don't mind to make if I have fed my starter, so that I take it back to the fridge, just a little portion for the next feeding. And this bread, I say, is easy because I'm working on 3 loaves each that are 3 cups of flour each. So these are 9 cups of flour. I will usually add about half a cup heaped of sugar. I will add about 2 teaspoons of salt with a third of salt, and then I will skip, these days I skip bicarbonate of soda, because especially when I've fed my sourdough starter with all-purpose, it just turns out nice. It doesn't turn out sour, as you would expect with sourdough starters. So usually these days I skip the bicarbonate of soda, and then I just added some cooking oil, about 9 tablespoons. I added some water, and of course the sourdough starter. Got to mix this, and then allowed it to rest for about 20 minutes. And then rather than knead it, one of the ways I love to work with bread when I'm just tired of kneading a huge big dough like this one, I will fold it over itself, as I'm doing several times, and that's it. My bread will turn out okay. So that's one of the things I do. I find it working for me. My breads will still turn out very nice, and so I just do that when I am tired of kneading, because this is a sandwich bread. As you can see, it's very affordable. Of course, if you have milk, you can also add milk. If you have an egg, you can also add an egg. But this one was just the basic ingredients of flour, salt, sugar, and then the starter and water and some cooking oil. So I got it to a fairly sticky but firm dough, allowed it to rest, and now did these motions. So I will cover it after this and allow it to bulk ferment overnight, and I will get back to it in the morning. So basically that was how my Sunday evening was. Now we look forward to the next day, when we will continue working with our tomato paste and of course other homemaking rhythms. It's a chilly day in the countryside. In the part of the world where we come from, these months are actually our coldest months. This is June, July, August. So it's really cold. Well, it doesn't snow here, thankfully, but it gets very cold and with a little bit of rain. But thankfully, this particular day ended up brightening up, and we were very grateful for that. So got to knead my bread for a minute or so, divided it into 3 parts, arranged it in my greased and dusted bread pans, and then allowed it to rest for about 30 or so minutes. And now I am just brushing it with a little egg wash, and then we are going to bake them right away. And honestly, as homemakers, we cannot escape the fact that there are many unpredictable sometimes situations that happen. That's why bread will always come in handy. And because I'm working on this vlog much later, you can be sure by the end of the week, all this bread was gone. You can see how wonderful it is. And of course, just grateful for the peaceful environment of the countryside. For breakfast, I'm working on a very simple recipe. If you've been here long enough, you know that our Mondays, I love to do something that will not take too long, but at the same time something exciting that will help us face the week with, excitement. And so I am working on banana drop scones. I had some overripe bananas, and this is something that you can do with your overripe bananas. They will not taste bad in your recipes. They will even mash faster. I will have in the description a link sharing exactly how I make my banana drop scones. I will share the blog version, but most likely the video version should be on the blog as well. It's a very simple yet delightful recipe that I know you will also enjoy. Of course, it's one of our favorites for breakfast when we have overripe bananas. Thankfully, we also have several drop scone recipes. I love to see our other channel, Recipes and Hospitality with Clara, is the home of drop scones. I have developed quite a number of them, and even if you don't have overripe bananas, there is one of our popular drop scone recipes, just the normal one without overripe bananas, that you can go for and still enjoy. So we enjoyed this with our usual Kenyan tea, and we're ready to continue with the day. One of the benefits of living on a farm is because you tend to have a lot of bushes that will sometimes need to be cleared, and my husband and his brother were able to clear a portion of our land, and so we're able to get to work on charcoal that we have been using, and so that is quite budget friendly for us. I have done a tomato paste recipes on our other channel, but I didn't go all the way to the end where you ensure that most of the water from the tomatoes has evaporated and therefore it's thick. And usually, of course, I don't go all the way to the end because of constraints in terms of fuel, but thankfully with this charcoal that we have, I could go up to the end. Honestly though, if I'm working with my gas stove, I do the shorter version of ensuring I'm working on tomato paste, but it is light. And if you don't have the advantage of a source of fuel like I am, that would help you to boil your tomato paste until it is thick, you can work with our recipe on our other channel that will have linked in the description below, because I have used it to work on tomato paste. And the reason why I love tomato paste is because during those months when tomatoes are very expensive, or I need something that needs tomato paste, I will use my homemade tomato paste. So this is how our tomato paste turned out after the 5 minutes of boiling in the pressure cooker. When it starts hissing, they were quite nicely softened, and you can see I didn't even add any water because it was a lot of tomatoes. They produce a lot of water. I would have had the option of removing the water as before I blend, but there's just something in my mind that tells me there are nutrients in that water. And as you know, overboiling tomatoes is not bad, because the nutrients that you're looking for will not get destroyed because of boiling. So I didn't want to get rid of that water. So what I opted to do is to put it on my charcoal stove or jiko. So what I did, like you saw, I ensured to use my blender, immersion blender, to blend the tomatoes and sieved them to remove the residue, which I will usually use in stews, so I don't get rid of it. And because my jiko had lighted so well, usually it will take a very long time to light because it's energy saving, and therefore the space to light is very small. But this time, well, I was on set, and I'm grateful for that, sharing this. It just lighted so fast, so that's why I kept sieving a little, added oil in the first one, and then started it off on the jiko. Then the rest of what I was sieving with my sieve, I would sieve a little and pour, sieve a little and pour. Usually I will also add salt, I will also add spices, but at the moment I have run out of a lot of my spices. I just have enough for my meals, so I will do this tomato paste without spices. I will also do without salt. I just thought, let me not do with salt, but added some cooking oil. That's the residue from the sieving. So that's our bread ready. Just thought to capture a bit of my husband working on a fence, a live fence, planting a live fence. So that's our tomato paste. It's boiling, so I will allow it to boil the whole day, just ensuring to add charcoal to the jiko and allowing it to boil for the whole day until most of the water has evaporated. As we continue, I thought to capture what my husband was doing this day because it could help someone. Usually we like to fence where we live because we have chicken, we have sheep, and so you don't want them to get into the wrong places. We also don't want to get into the wrong places because one of the ways of ensuring that things are kept well is ensuring boundaries are set in place, and of course fences have a way of helping us with that. So usually we will propagate our own fence by cutting off the very tender parts of this live fence that you can see, and then he will plant it and ensure that it is well watered every day, soaked with water. Then he covers it with hay that is dry. We used to use grass that we would mow, but we got very good mowers. Those are our sheep that really eat up the grass, so we end up not having grass to do this. So my husband just got hay, and then he covers the live fence that he has planted with hay so that it can maintain the moisture and not be hit hard by the sun. And that way we have propagated our fences like that. So at this point we had our bread for lunch. We did homemade mayonnaise, and I hope I will share a recipe of our homemade mayonnaise, how we make it at home. We had some avocado and tomato as a sandwich for our bread, and we were grateful we had something for our lunch. And now this is later in the evening. I have boiled and boiled and boiled on a simmer, a gentle simmer really, because I was closing the jiko. Boiled my tomato paste. Now it is thick and heavy. There's still some light embers in the jiko left. I will allow it now to just boil with what is left on the jiko until we work with it in the morning. If you follow my recipe on the other channel, it has all the ingredients, so it's wonderful to follow through with it. The only difference is, while I post after boiling for some time, this one I continued boiling until the tomato paste was very thick. Now you can see how thick it is. So kept it in portions so that when we need it, we will just remove from the freezer the portion that we need, use it most likely over the week, because we are a family of 4, I would say 4 to 6 now that we may have a guest here and there. So one portion is enough for us in a week when we don't have tomatoes or when we need tomato paste for a recipe. So we will store in the freezer and use for later. So that's one of the ways of being good stewards, especially when we get tomatoes very cheap or we just want to take care of overripe tomatoes. So homemaking is a blessing. It's the will of God because we are commanded to be busy at home, to ensure, like the Proverbs 31 woman, we are watching over the affairs of our households and we are not eating the bread of idleness. So whether you're boiling beans like I was doing, on planting live fences, or kneading the dough, I trust that in all you're doing, you're trusting the Lord to glorify Him as you serve Him in your homemaking rhythms. I believe your labor in the Lord is not in vain. So what homemaking task are you working on this week? Please comment below. I would be glad to know. If you enjoyed this, subscribe for more countryside homemaking rhythms. You're also welcome to join our Proverbs 31 Sessions program that we have twice every year. You can find the link for registration in the description below. I trust that would also be a blessing. As is always our custom, we will pray and trust the Lord to just be with us in our homemaking. Father, please be with me and my viewer. Grant that you will be glorified as you help us so that we will glorify you in our homemaking. I trust that what I've shared will be a blessing and even give more insight to my viewer to do your will. We thank you. We honor your name, O God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.